At 1 p.m. in this very room, the co-chairs of the Secretary General's panel on critical energy transition minerals, and that's Ambassador Mkato Diseko of South Africa and Director General Dieter Jorgensen of the European Commission, will brief you on the panel's work. Also, we will release at 1 p.m. a statement from the Secretary General on the panel. He's, as we speak, meeting with the panel co-chairs to officially receive the report. Also, after a lot of back and forth, on Wednesday, September 18th at 11 a.m., the Secretary General of the United Nations will be in this very room to speak to you prior to the opening of the 79th high-level session of the General Assembly. Put it in your calendars. As you know, today is September 11th. 23 years ago on this day, we remember the 9/11 terrorist attacks that struck this city. Secretary General said that today his thoughts are with everyone who lost their loved ones on 9/11 and with all the people of New York City, and also all of our colleagues here who also lost loved ones. In a social media post, Mr. Guterres said New York City has hosted the United Nations for decades, and the place many of our colleagues call home, and so does he. On this day, the United Nations underscores its commitment to never forget the nearly 3,000 people from over 90 different countries whose lives were taken on that day, and the thousands more who were injured or sickened. Earlier this afternoon, local time in Gaza, an Israeli airstrike hit an UNRWA school being used as a shelter, the new Nuseirat school in Gaza. The site had been previously deconflicted with Israeli security forces. This is the fifth strike on the same location in the past 11 months. We're trying to confirm reports that some UNRWA staff members were killed in the attack. Meanwhile, the polio vaccination campaign in northern Gaza is continuing. The World Health Organization tells us that as of yesterday, more than 81,600 children under 10 had been vaccinated. That's according to preliminary data they are recording. This brings the total number of children reached across Gaza to nearly 528,000 as of yesterday. We'll share updated figures as soon as we get them. More than 230 teams on the ground are trying to reach all children under age of 10 with the first batch of the polio vaccination. As you'll recall, we'll need to do this again in 4 weeks. Our colleagues from the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warn that Gaza's healthcare system remains in dire condition, with our partners reporting that half of all essential medicines are not available in the Gaza Strip. Primary health centers are facing critically low levels of insulin. Routine vaccinations to protect infants from tuberculosis, as well as diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, are also nearly exhausted. In the West Bank, OCHA reports that the United Nations and our partners continue to support Palestinian civilians affected by the 10-day Israeli security operation in Jenin and Tulkarm, as well as adjacent refugee camps. The support includes the delivery of food and water, with OCHA coordinating efforts to provide additional assistance. Over the weekend, OCHA, along with UNRWA and other humanitarian partners, began assessing the needs of Palestinians impacted by the operation. OCHA reports more than 620 people, over a third of them children, remain displaced. As of Sunday, 2,400 housing units had been damaged, with more than 100 rendered uninhabitable. In the Tulkarm and Nur Shams refugee camps, more than 2.6 kilometers of water and sewage networks were bulldozed during the operation, severely hindering access and delivery of essential services. OCHA reports more than 33,000 residents have been coping with water cuts and sewage flooding over the past 2 weeks. In the Kafr Dam, in the Jenin refugee camp, and in eastern Jenin, about 70% of the city's roads and underlying water and sewage networks were bulldozed during the operation, cutting drinking water for about 35,000 residents of those areas and creating sewage flooding problems. Also, I just want to read into the record a statement we issued late yesterday, in which the Secretary General strongly condemned the Israeli airstrikes that took place in a densely populated safe zone area designated as a safe zone by Israeli security forces in Khan Yunis, and the killing of civilians, including women and children. The use of heavy weapons in densely populated areas is unconscionable, the Secretary General said. You had that statement yesterday. A quick note on Yemen. Most of you must have seen the recent allegations made by the de facto authorities in Yemen regarding some of our agencies, which are working tirelessly to address the impact of the dire humanitarian situation on the people of Yemen. We firmly reject the allegations made by the Houthis that UNICEF, UNESCO, and other humanitarian partners have been colluding to destroy Yemen's education system. Such false statements are baseless and further threaten the safety and staff and hinder our ability and our partners' ability to serve the people of Yemen. With over 4.5 million children out of school in Yemen, UNICEF calls on the Sana'a authorities to lead a constructive and collaborative approach, working together with all partners to address the pressing needs of all children. We underscore that the safety of all United Nations personnel must be respected and assured. The Secretary General is deeply concerned that 3 months have passed since the Houthis arbitrarily detained 13 UN personnel, in addition to members of civil society and national and international NGOs, as well as diplomatic missions. Additionally, 4 UN staff were detained in 2021 and 2023 and remain in detention. The Secretary General reiterates his call for the immediate and his unconditional release of all UN personnel and partners who are arbitrarily detained in Yemen. In the meantime, those detained must be treated with full respect for their human rights, and they must be able to contact their families and contact their legal representatives. A couple of travel updates for senior political officials. Rosemary DiCarlo, the Undersecretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, wrapped up her visit to Libya today with a meeting with the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Guila Saleh. They discussed the current political dynamics and the way forward. She emphasized the need for a political process to find a consensual approach to overcome the crisis affecting Libya. We'll have more detail on a note to correspondence that we will share with you that will give you an overview of her trip to Libya. Meanwhile, one of her deputies, Miroslav Yencha, Assistant Secretary General for Europe, Central Asia, and the Americas, completed a visit to Haiti today. He reiterated the United Nations' continued commitment, including through the UN political mission there, to accompany Haiti's path to restore security, democratic institutions, stability, and development. Mr. Yencha met with the President of the Transitional Presidential Council, Edouard Leblanc-Fils, also with the Prime Minister, Gary Conille, and other senior officials. He also met representatives of the Haitian National Police, the Multinational Security Support Mission, civil society, representatives of various institutions and political parties, among others. All of those he met emphasized that security remains the biggest challenge. While some successes have been activated in anti-gang operations conducted by the Haitian police with the support of the Multinational Security Support Mission in Port-au-Prince, it is imperative for the international community to urgently and substantially increase its support for the MSS as well as the Haitian National Police. This is fundamental to improve security and allow progress on the political track and in development. Mr. Yencha agreed with interlocutors on the critical importance of the expeditious appointment of the Provisional Electoral Council. The United Nations will continue to support the government in planning and executing a credible and fair electoral process. Mr. Yencha also traveled to the northern city of Cape Haitian, where the people he met there expressed concern that security operations in Port-au-Prince may lead to a spread of gang violence to other regions. They echoed calls to further strengthen the Haitian National Police and provide effective security across Haiti. Turning to West Africa, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that hundreds of thousands of people in Nigeria have been impacted by flash floods after a dam collapsed in Maiduguri in the Borno state, and that's in the northeast of the country. OCHA says that immediate humanitarian needs include food, include shelter, and clean water. Protection remains a major concern, especially among unaccompanied and separated children, older people, and people living with disabilities. Unfortunately, the $927 million humanitarian response plan for Nigeria is currently 46% funded with $422 million. Despite the funding challenges, we and our partners are mobilized in supporting the government's response. Yesterday, the United Nations helped conduct an aerial assessment of impacted areas with the support of UN Humanitarian Air Service. For its part, the World Food Program and its partners have started to distribute food aid. And just to paint you a picture of the scale of this disaster, according to the International Organization for Migration, nearly 240,000 people have been affected after the dam burst on Monday, and that followed heavy rains and structural damage to the dam. Flooding is reportedly covering 40% of the town of Maiduguri itself, which has an estimated population of over 870,000 people. The town also hosts 2 camps for displaced people, and that the combined population of those 2 camps is 230,000 human beings. Local authorities have been reported damage to bridges, telecommunications, electricity networks. In some areas, the floods are also disrupting access to healthcare facilities, schools, and other services. In the meantime, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that evacuation of people by the government authorities continue. These flash floods are occurring against a backdrop of floods across Nigeria and other parts of the region, which have so far claimed more than 200 lives, impacted more than 800,000 people across 29 of Nigeria's states. That's what national authorities are telling us. Some of the flood-affected areas in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states are facing food and nutrition crisis impacting 4.8 million people, putting the lives of 230,000 children at risk of acute malnutrition. And in the Central African Republic, our peacekeeping colleagues continue to work to support an initiative launched yesterday in Bangui by the African Union as part of its Silencing the Guns initiative. Our colleagues are playing a crucial role to support efforts to combat the possession and circulation of illicit arms, particularly small arms, which threaten peace and development. Through logistical, technical, and financial support, the mission has helped national authorities to mark and register over 1,500 weapons sites since late 2023 and support the government's 2024-2028 National Action Plan against the proliferation of small arms. The second pillar of the mission's disarmament work is to support the Community Violence Reduction Program, which is active in Bangui and 13 prefectures of the country. That aims to support the sustainability of the mission's demobilization, disarmament, reintegration efforts, targeting civilians, particularly young people prone to violence, by offering alternatives such as vocational training and income-generating activities. Since its launch in 2015, the program has directly benefited more than 38,000 people. Furthermore, a total of 600 weapons of war, 15,000 traditional weapons, and 33,000 rounds of ammunition have been collected. And just for the record, you saw that yesterday afternoon the Security Council met to discuss threats to international peace and security. They were briefed by Joyce Masuya, our acting emergency relief coordinator. She noted that regrettably in 2.5 years since the escalation of the war in Ukraine, the situation only continues to worsen, adding that the death toll is mounting and human suffering continues at intolerable levels. Ms. Masuya said, "We are deeply concerned by the recent expansion of fighting in new areas on both sides of the Ukraine-Russia border." Those texts were shared with you. Quick announcement from the UN Refugee Agency, which today says it needs $21.4 million through the end of the year to urgently scale up critical response and prevention efforts for refugee countries impacted by Mpox emergency. The appeal aims to support 9.9 forcibly displaced people and host communities in 35 countries across Africa. Money today. Quiz. Landlocked country is home to the Grand Mosque of Djenné, which is the largest man-made clay structure in the world. Sorry, don't. Okay, you're wrong. Uh, and you're right. There you go. The Grand Mosque of Jenne is the largest man-made clay structure in the world, dates back to 1907. The town of Jenne was designated as UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1988. We thank Bamako. Mali, yes, Mali. Yeah. You're never right, so you get a question.
Thanks, Steph. Going back to this IDF strike on the UNRWA shelter in Gaza, you said you're looking into staff casualties, but what
Yes.
about shelter residents?
Our colleagues on the ground are trying to evaluate the situation.
And how many staff were at the shelter? Do you know?
We're trying to get all that for you.
And has the IDF given you any explanation?
No, ma'am.
Have you asked for one?
We're in touch with them.
And then just on Yemen, the detentions that you reminded us about, are they related to these allegations against the UN agencies?
No, these were allegations made by the Houthis, which we feel threaten the staff that continues to work. Right. So they're not no new detentions that we know of, but to make these sorts of public statements threaten and the staff, and especially our national staff, that continue to work in Yemen.
But do you have a reason for the detentions of the earlier detentions?
No, we've still
Okay.
nothing more than you've seen. Edie.
Thanks, Steph. According to hospital authorities, at least 34 people were killed in the UN strike, in the Israeli airstrike on the UN school and on homes today. Does the Secretary General condemn these strikes, and is the UN going to do any kind of a protest?
As I said, we deconflict all of our schools, which are now shelters. We condemn all airstrikes that target civilians and those that also target UN facilities. And we are, as I said, our colleagues are in touch with Israeli authorities. Deji, Gabriel, then Benny.
Well, I can give you an explanation from IDF about why the...
No, you can ask me a question. I don't need... Yeah.
They claimed there is a command center in that school by Hamas. It's a deconflicted zone. What's the possibility for Hamas to infiltrate a deconflicted zone in the UNRWA school to set up a commanding center?
Let me just say, we of course do not... we do whatever... Our policy is clear, right? UN premises should never be targeted, nor should UN premises be used by any groups or any force from which to launch military activities. UN premises need to be protected. UN premises need to be respected, and that is by all parties to any conflict.
It's not been respected, obviously, by IDF, but is that the case that Hamas was not there?
I cannot answer that question. Okay, what I'm telling you is that the use of UN facilities, whether from which to launch attacks, the targeting of UN facilities, is against international humanitarian law. Okay, Gabriel, then Benny, then Benno, then Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Steph. You said regarding this UNRWA facility that was hit by the Israeli military, it's the 5th time in the last 7 months. The previous 4 times, has Israel gotten back to the UN with evidence on that there was Hamas fighters there?
I'm not aware of that.
And you have asked for it?
Yeah.
And can you just clarify, in this facility, there are UNRWA employees working, and what are they doing? I think there's a perception out there that this is an empty shelter.
No, I mean, within those places that used to be schools that are being used as shelters, UNRWA staff continue to try to provide basic services of food and water, some psychosocial services. I mean, I think we talked yesterday about schools reopening, or on Monday, And in those shelters, they try to help children by providing games and playtime. And so there are staff providing all sorts of services.
And do you have an idea of when we'll know if any UNRWA staff members?
We should know later today.
And last follow-up on that same topic is when Israel targets a UN facility, do they give you any sort of warning so you can get your staff out in advance?
I'm not aware that any warning was given, but you should check with UNRWA to make sure.
Thank you.
Benny.
Two questions unrelated. One to this, related to this. Several countries not named Israel have cited infiltration of Hamas into UNRWA in removing funding from UNRWA. Do you have any comment on the Swiss legislature yesterday removing funds from UNRWA?
The Secretary General continues to believe that UNRWA provides essential, critical services to the people it's mandated to serve and should continue to be supported by all member states. UNRWA has been extremely proactive in dealing with suspected cases of people who were involved or accused of being involved in terror activities. You know that we kind of rang the alarm bell on that. Your second
and
question,
yet you can't tell if there were any Hamas members in this specific
I'll
case.
stand by what I just said a few minutes ago.
My second question regarding, since we were talking about the budget and Bamako's fantastic contribution, as far as I remember, there was, this is totally unrelated to anything. As far as I remember,
It's got to be related to something, Benny.
as far as
Yeah,
I,
everything's.
as far as
everything's
I remember,
connected.
there was a rehabilitation of this building for over $2 billion a few years back.
The Capital Master Plan?
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The escalators seem to not work.
Look, you're a poor imitation of James Bay's, Benny. No,
I have no idea what.
no, I don't. Yeah, I think the escalator, I've noticed, has been in a state of efforts are being made to repair the escalator for quite some time. I very much hope it's repaired because I'm lazy and I like to use it to go from the ground floor to the first floor. But I will check with our colleagues to see how quickly it will be repaired.
There was a lot of money involved in
I don't think the
rehabilitating
escalators
this
were
building.
really redone. If you look, that part wasn't. I'll check if I'm not sure the escalators were refurbished.
Maybe a couple more $1 million would help in that effort.
Not to refer to anything I may have seen yesterday, but I do detect a little bit of sarcasm in your question.
Me?
Yeah. Benno and then Abdelhamid.
It's a spicy briefing today. Wow. Summit of the Future was once labeled by the Secretary General as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to, I paraphrase, reform the United Nations or the enhanced cooperation between countries. I just received the speakers list for the Summit of the Future. From the P5 countries, none intends to send either head of state or head of government to this event. What does it say about the gravity of the event and, frankly, about the readiness of the P5 to reform the United Nations?
Well, I think I will let you analyze the willingness of the P5 to reform the Security Council. I think what matters is the work that has been put in these last months and especially these last weeks and days on the outcome document, which will be approved and adopted before the speakers come forward. So we're really focusing on the tremendous work that has been done by the co-facilitators, Germany and Namibia, if I'm not mistaken, and all of member states to get us the best possible outcome document.
And how would you characterize this state of the negotiations right now? I mean, like you might have seen the document.
I hoped you would ask that question to Guy Ryder, but I didn't. I think maybe the word I would use is intense. Madame, and then, oh, sorry, Abdelhamid, sorry,
Oh, thank you.
I'm being
Thank
thrown
you,
off.
Stefan. I have a few questions too. So we're talking about two incidents: the attack on Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis, which left 40 Palestinians dead, and the attack on the school, which has left many civilians killed, including a small child. So I haven't heard the number of people killed in both incidents.
Well, first of all, the number of this particular case, we're looking at the numbers of what we can confirm, which is our own staff. As you know, we rely on the local Ministry of Health for the casualties. I'm sure we will get the numbers that we can. I think we were very clear, extremely clear in our condemnation of what happened in Mawasi yesterday.
My second question about what you have read about the results of the Israeli attack on Jenin and Tul Karim and all these refugee camps and other towns in northern Palestine. Do they have any other name other than collective punishment? Why you don't say that, sir?
Listen, there are a lot of words that we don't use. You are welcome to criticize us for the words that we use or we don't use. Your next question.
My last. Khalida Jarrar is a member of the Palestinian Legislative Council. She's a very graceful woman. She was arrested several times. Now she has been for months in a solitary confinement. Her health is deteriorating by the hour. And if nothing is said about her, you might hear her death in the next few days.
Well, we hope that everyone that is being detained is given the service and being treated in accordance with international standards. Madame.
Steph, on that school again, on the UNRWA school, can you tell us what the capacity was for the shelter?
No, we were getting the information just as I was coming here, so we'll send you out an email with all the details that we have.
And one more, you said it was the 5th time this particular school shelter was hit. Is the UN considering perhaps just closing the shelters because the schools are repeatedly hit and families are being killed?
Everything is repeatedly hit.
But these seem
there's
to
no
be
place,
less safe than some of the other places.
I think that's all. That's all relative. We still need places where we can service people. We do our best to protect them, but as we've said, there's no place safe in Gaza. Idia, sorry, then Ibtisam, and then Deshi.
Steph, going back to Yemen, you said 4.5 million children are out of school.
Right.
How many of those children are in Houthi-controlled areas?
That I need to get that breakdown.
Thank you.
Okay. Ibtisam.
So my question is, like, we hear every day about massacres and killing of Palestinians, attacks on your health aid, convoys, cars, schools, etc. And this all happens with American and European weapons. And if the weapon delivery will stop, or if the Americans will stop this war could stop. Did the Secretary General consider talking to the Americans or putting public pressure on them to stop the weapon delivery to the Israelis, to stop this war?
Look, we want this conflict to stop, and the best way to stop it is to initially, for the parties to find the courage to reach a ceasefire and get us back on track to a two-state solution, which may sound a little too optimistic to speak about at this point, but for the Secretary General remains the only solution forward.
Yeah, but that's not my question. In order to get to the two-state solution, I don't know. But the question is very simple. In order, you constantly condemn killing, etc. So the question is what to do now, immediately, to stop this war. And why isn't he
I
putting
understand
more
your
public
question, and I think
pressures?
on the
Why
issue-
isn't he putting more public pressure on these countries that are delivering weapons in order to stop this war?
I think the Secretary General has been very vocal in what he feels needs to be done to stop this conflict. And I think on the issue of weapons, I think you asked the question yesterday in a different manner, and I answered it. Deji.
Yes, Summit of the Future. Can you confirm that VP Kamala Harris would participate in Summit of the Future?
No, I don't. Ask Benno's got the speakers list.
She will not.
Okay.
Oh, sadly. Okay, so I was just thought to ask whether the Secretary General has the intention to meet with the VP.
As we said, the Secretary General will meet with any head of delegation, anybody who comes into the UN and requests a meeting. We expect the U.S. delegation to be led by the President, Mr. Biden.
So last night there is a spectacular TV political show on U.S. TV. Has the Secretary General watched that show?
Secretary General is well aware of what transpired during 98 or 100 minutes yesterday on television in the United States and around the world.
But after that show, Taylor Swift made her endorsement. Will the Secretary General endorse what Taylor Swift's endorsement?
I never thought I would say that, but let's go to Benny. Benny, sorry. Sorry
no.
for being the pinata. I apologize for treating you like a pinata today.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
So, to follow up on Ibtisam's question, there is a proposed resolution in the General Assembly that would impose complete arms embargo on Israel, global arms embargo on Israel. Does the Secretary General, that I know is not part of the General Assembly and all that, does the Secretary General have an opinion on such an idea?
What the Secretary General would say is that this conflict doesn't need any more weapons. Okay.
Wait. That's different than
No, but
complete
that's my
arms
answer.
embargo.
You get to choose the answer. You get to choose a question. I get to choose the answer. Stefano.
Yes, it's a follow-up on the debate of last night. He said that from what I understand, the Secretary General is well aware, probably watched it. There were three main topics in international affairs. There was Gaza, Ukraine, and also climate change. Does the Secretary General is satisfied with the way the two candidates handled those topics?
Nice try, Stefano. But the Secretary General focuses on what people who are elected or who are in power do. He doesn't focus on statements during election campaigns.
Are you saying that Taylor Swift is not elected?
Okay. Nice. Thank you. Thank you all.